Sure, I'd love to kind of share with you guys a bit about my background and how I kind of segued into more and more AI-oriented stuff over just the last couple of months or year or so. So I do have a technical background in engineering, and later I transitioned a bit into technology and education because I got very interested in kind of how technology can be used in the classroom, how it can help us understand learning and making learning better. I had touched a bit upon AI in my studies, but I only really got into it about a year ago, which kind of overlaps with the time when AI became this global phenomenon. It doesn't mean AI wasn't a big player before that, but I think the whole world just got very excited about it and is getting increasingly excited about it over the last 1 year. So I kind of stumbled on this topic when I was looking to contribute to LUMS in a certain way. So I've been affiliated with higher education for a very long time. I've been on the faculty at LUMS for something like 15 years at this point. I've taught in the schools of engineering, the business school, and the School of Education. And increasingly, I've tried to make courses that kind of combine the faculties across them, because that's my excitement and passion in life, to kind of come up with new courses that kind of cut across disciplines and draw more people into thinking about connections. So when I was talking to the LUMS continuing education people, who are the ones who kind of focus on executive training off campus, we were trying to come up with some new topic on which I could make some courses that would be interesting to people that wasn't already on their roster. They were already doing things like that I'd already taught, like entrepreneurship and marketing and stuff like that. And I thought, why not do something in AI? You know, we're at the point where people are starting to talk a lot about AI. Let me make some short courses. So I started doing some of my own research and thinking about, okay, what's the right way for me to even learn AI, even though I have a technical background, but what are the things I need to know that are relevant today, that are different from what I studied in textbooks in the last many years and decades. So in just trying to do this research and design these short courses that help people develop an intuition on what AI means and how it works, I've had this experience over the last year of making short courses for professionals. And at LUMS, I've taught them in 3 flavors. I've done AI for managers, AI for educators, and AI for marketers, because every couple of weeks, every couple of months, something new comes up that I feel like can be learned and taught. So I think of what is the best way to express it. And it's helped me a lot in my career. I frequently now get consulting opportunities both here in Pakistan and abroad, drawing upon specifically this background in AI, since it's still relatively new and not, there just aren't a lot of people with deep expertise in it. So I got this really excellent opportunity to do some consulting for a Silicon Valley startup in upskilling. And they involved me in designing and teaching these AI courses for executives. So I taught some live courses for Hewlett Packard, which was amazing. I loved meeting their executives and kind of going over the basics of AI with them and thinking about how they could use it to improve their work efficiency and work streams. So that was a very rewarding experience. And gradually what I've seen is that just learning more about AI, thinking more about AI is creating more and more opportunities for me. And I'd love for the same to be, for it to be for you guys. So that message I'm trying to give you really is, you can get pretty deeply into AI at any point in your career. It doesn't need to be that your degree needs to be in AI or something related to it. There's a lot of resources out there to learn about it. And once you develop some intuition and have a sense for the material and applications, you can add a lot of value both for yourself and for people around you.
Thank you for sharing, Jazib. I feel like everyone needed to hear that, because a lot of people, as excited as they are about artificial intelligence, are also very scared and resistant कि पता नहीं हमें कितनी expertise चाहिए, हम किस तरह इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं या नहीं. But I think one of the things that you said, which is a good segue into what I wanted to ask you now, was you said कि it's like it's changing quite fast. हर रोज कोई एक नई चीज आ रही है. So in this like ever changing dynamic that we have, what's the most exciting thing going on in this realm right now? And with that, I would also give the floor to you to go on and give us the content that you prepared for us.
Sounds great. I'm so glad to have a chance to kind of share with you both my own excitement in AI as well as kind of the material I've prepared for today. So let's start with your initial question. You asked about kind of what's exciting about AI right now. And to be honest, what was exciting a few days ago is already different from what might be exciting today. But I think what's really caught people's imagination in just the last 24, 48 hours, you guys might be familiar with the company Nvidia. They're benefiting a lot from the AI boom because they build a lot of the hardware underlying it. So you might have seen their keynotes and the new chips they've come out with, the new resources and capabilities, both related to robotics, related to partnerships with different companies. So there's a lot of exciting stuff stemming from new companies that are in the AI space. So let me jump into what I have prepared today. I need my screen sharing to be activated. Is that something? It's activated? Okay. Okay, awesome. All right, so if I go to my screen here and let's move that away. Okay, all set. So one of the highlights I've shared with you here is about Nvidia, as I just talked about. And what I want you to think about is that AI is essentially changing the technology landscape. If I asked you a few years ago, who are the big names in tech, you might have said, usual suspects, Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. They're still big. They're all very big. They're going into AI, but it's also given other companies an opportunity to become big as well. So Nvidia is probably one that most recently has kind of joined the big four or the big five or whatever you want to call it. And the reason is because what I want you to realize is AI is not just about the tools you and I use. We have a front-end interface that we are interacting with for the benefits of AI, but there's a whole world and a whole ecosystem operating at the back end. And NVIDIA is one of those companies that might not be making the consumer-facing AI apps that startups might be making or someone else might be making, but they are making the engines, the shovels that allow AI to happen. You cannot go into AI without a lot of hardware, without a lot of infrastructure. And it's companies like Nvidia who are building this, who affect both the software and the hardware. So if by chance you invested some money in them a year or two ago, you would have made a lot of money in return by now. Unfortunately, hindsight is 2020. It's too late to go back and invest in them. Although I would say if you're still in a position to do so, please do invest in them and look at other hardware companies like AMD, look at ARM in the UK. These companies are going big into AI. And the thing with the AI hardware is it's not just something any company can go into. It's so specialized, requiring so much expertise that the companies that already have the ability to do it and to process the data needed in these AI models, they're already very ahead. And the Googles and the Microsofts are trying to catch up with them, and maybe they will eventually, but it's not just something any company can do. So one of the exciting things right now is that AI is not just the domain of the big names you're used to having control over all the tech. It's given a chance to other companies to come in and develop certain expertise as well. And NVIDIA is one of those examples. And that's why you might see and hear it in the news. And I think the keynote they gave was just as big as something Apple might have given a few years ago as well. Here's another headline from the world of AI, and this one might be close to your heart if you're a Netflix fan. So people were very excited about this a few weeks ago. कि जी Netflix ने तो website पे jobs डालेंगे हैं $900,000 a year. And we Pakistanis in particular are very excited when we see high salaries and we want to know how to get them. So yeah, Netflix is telling you if you can get hired to work on AI at Netflix, and AI at Netflix, what does that mean? It means making movies through AI, they're willing to pay you nearly $1 million a year. Sounds like a good deal. So if you want to make a lot of money right now, AI is one of the places you can do that. But it's a double-edged sword, right? So on the one hand, AI is allowing us to do things that just can't be done elsewhere, that couldn't be done before. But on the other hand, it's making a lot of people upset and a lot of people angry. Why is that? Because एक तरफ Netflix is saying, I'll give you $1 million to come in as an AI engineer and work for me. एक तरफ they're laying off people. एक तरफ Hollywood पे strike चल रही है कि, where is our protection? Where are our rights? Where are our privileges? So AI is a major disruptor. And AI is changing industries very fast right now. You might not feel it today or tomorrow, but in the near future, a lot of industries are being shaken up by AI. generally the belief is that one of the reasons we're having this tech recession right now, where people are getting laid off in the US and uske ripple effects hame yahan bhi feel ho rahe hain, especially those of us who work in the tech sector, is because these companies are anticipating that AI ki wajah se in the future, they might not need so many people. They just might need a smaller number of people with expertise in AI. Maybe that's how things pan out, maybe not. It's too early to tell. But at least what we can see is AI is really making big corporations think and figure out how things are going to be changed. So the reason I'm giving you this background is because I feel like to really appreciate AI before we jump into the actual tools we're going to use, I want you to think about its significance. AI is not something I just want you to get comfortable using. I want you to understand the backstory behind it. And based on these two headlines, what I'm hoping you take away is that AI is a big deal that is disrupting industries, that is changing who the big players are. And I need to understand that because chances are it's going to have an impact on my career and how I think about it as well. So now let's jump into some additional background content. I will be getting soon to some examples of how you can use these AI tools for your work, but I want to make sure, again, you understand the basics, the jargon, the background to these things first. So the first thing I might ask you is, what is AI? We know it stands for artificial intelligence. We have certain perceptions we associate it with physical robots, speaking, acting like humans, but AI is basically, jisko computer science mein hum kehte hain, it's a loaded term. Okay, it has lots of implications. So in defining AI, most computer scientists will tell you, I just can't do it in one sentence anymore because it's a loaded term. There's so much to it. But what I'd like you to appreciate is that basically there are different layers to it. If you try to define AI in terms of the philosophical side of things, you might say something like, it's our attempt to develop agents that have human-like capabilities. Although you might ask, what are human-like capabilities? Some of those things are intuitive, like thinking, reasoning, extrapolating, having dexterity, but it's a very broad definition. And the truth is, when you define AI from a computer science, from a technical perspective, chances are within that definition, you maintain this implication that you're using the past data to predict the future. So no matter how you interpret AI in terms of human-like behavior, it's basically not imagining things. It's just computing a lot of data in the past and using it to predict the future. And that's not something very new. It's generally called machine learning. So if you were to visualize it, basically, AI is this very broad sphere that includes philosophical thinking, psychology, what does it mean to be human, any attempt to be human-like. But then there's a subset within that we call machine learning. Machine learning is using past data statistics to predict the future. And that is the part of AI that has been working for a while and works best. When Amazon recommends something to you, when Netflix recommends something to you, they're basically using machine learning. They're using the past data to predict the future. And to be honest, even for most of generative AI, even for most of ChatGPT, that's the basic concept behind it. Although the more developed we get, the more and more we are refining our approach. And it's this refining at this moment that is making AI so exciting. So then my next question to you is, and I'd like you to think about this, why has AI exploded just now? I mean, it's been around for such a long time. Why is everyone just talking about it now like it happened yesterday? The truth is, AI की जो underlying theory है, जो उसकी mathematics है, जो उसकी logic है, that is not new. That has been around since 1950. If you go back to the history of computer science, mathematics, engineering in the 1950s, people already kind of understood what AI was, and they could explain it on pencil and paper कि उसकी ये capabilities होंगी, but they couldn't implement it yet. They only figured out how to implement it relatively recently. I mean, it's taken more than 70 years to get us to the point where the theories we were talking about back then are finally practical. And what's the reason for that? The reason for that goes back to one of the early points I made. Okay, AI does not exist in a vacuum. It's not just on your computer screen. To implement AI, to compute, to process, to do all that intense stuff like model building, there's a lot of physics and infrastructure and hardware behind it. So even theoretically, when we knew AI एक चीज होगी जिसकी ये capabilities होंगी, we did not have the physical infrastructure to implement it in 1950. We didn't have it in 1960, 70, 80 either. We only got it relatively recently. How to store the data, how to compute the data, how to transfer the data. The physical world has finally caught up with the theory, which is why we have ended up in the situation where AI is just exploding. We understand how it works. We have the physical capabilities. All these new applications are arising. But that's a general trend in technology. The things we see in theory, they take a long time to implement in practice. And the reason for that is because there are certain physical capabilities that need to be in place before it can become a reality. I also want you to realize that AI is not just for us sitting at our desks and doing our work. AI is a geopolitical phenomenon. If you've been following the news, you know America and China are in intense competition over technology in general and AI in particular. And why is that? It's because they take different approaches to AI. You might be familiar with the fact that China ने तो बहुत large scale पे AI implement की हुई है. It's because they have a very large population, so they can collect a lot of data. So they have all kinds of facial recognition and surveillance all over the country. And that works because you have a relatively large population that can be modeled with relatively homogeneous assumptions, which might be harder in a country like the United States, which is much more diverse and where the population is actually smaller, so less data is available. And at the same time, there are legal considerations. You know, China, as kind of a state-run country, has basically decided that developing AI is important to us. So they have made it a priority to develop it. Whereas in the US, they're going a little slower because they're also figuring out the legal side and how it kind of interfaces with human rights and other considerations. And Europe is even slower for that reason because they really want to be a very consumer-oriented market. You're probably all familiar with GDPR. They've really prioritized the rights of consumers. Your data should be safe. So on that same logic, they're not just letting AI companies build whatever they want. They're trying to regulate it. They're going a little more slowly. But as you can see, every country and region is adopting a fairly different approach in line with its own priorities and values, because there is no kind of well-defined global regulation or global best practices on what is the best way to be using AI at the moment. So the geopolitical battle is just starting, because one thing you'll see is, research output, top publishers, China might actually be ahead of the US. But I mean, there are other places where the US might feel ahead of China, but all these countries are right now prioritizing AI. They're coming up with their own regulations and policies around it. Pakistan has a written policy on AI from the government, which is quite similar to that you'll see from other countries. You might have got it on a WhatsApp forward. It's been circulating around. You'll find that all countries are basically approaching AI both with exuberance and with caution. So they're exuberant because they think AI is the way to personalize and customize experiences. What does government want to do? They want to personalize your education. They want to personalize your healthcare. That's their big goal, right? And they think AI is the way to figure out how to provide you with these personalized services. But at the same time, they're also fearful about AI because AI can disrupt the economy. I just showed you that it can disrupt Netflix and make people there unhappy. So what about other sectors? There are so many sectors that can be affected by AI. So countries have to think about, will unemployment increase because of this? Do we have to prepare our people better for this? Do we need to have certain regulations around what data you can use, what data you cannot use, stuff like that? So these are all considerations right now in figuring out how countries need to manage their AI policies, how countries need to kind of interface with each other, what are their collaboration policies. So we're at this very exciting point in history right now where people are figuring all these things out. Now, to take a step back into some of the mathematical intuition, what I want you to realize is the reason AI is able to apply to everything from time to video to images is because ultimately computers treat all of this as data. When I look at an image, I see colors, but when a computer looks at an image, it sees numbers. Each color can be represented by a number. And we've come up with certain logic for that, which allows computers to use images, to process them, to run all kinds of filters on them. You might be familiar with that. So AI is doing the same thing. It's converting images to numbers, and it's running all kinds of calculations on them around predictions. So let's try to understand the basics of how that works. So basically, all of AI really comes down to having a lot of data, having an algorithm that learns from that data, and then uses it to predict the future. And basically, all AI you're interfacing with right now runs on this kind of principle. Let's think of certain examples you're most familiar with. You might be most familiar with Instagram or LinkedIn. If you think about it, every time you're on LinkedIn or Instagram, you're facing AI. They're constantly bombarding you with add this person, follow this page. They're trying to predict what you want to follow, what you want to read, what you want to see. How are they doing that? They're using basic AI. They're collecting each and every data point of your behavior. If I have an account on Instagram, it is measuring the time I spend on everyone else's account. It is measuring the order in which I go. It is measuring what I say about myself. If I say in my Instagram profile, I'm a father, I'm a tennis fan, whatever, it even processes that and tries to find patterns. Kiji, what do fathers like? What do tennis fans like? So basically, these companies have a lot of data. So Instagram has my data, your data, everyone's data. So they're constantly crunching it to find patterns. Kiji, what does this say about user preferences? LinkedIn is the same. LinkedIn records everything I do. How much time do I spend on my own profile, your profile? What articles do I read? In what order do I read them? And it collects all this data, it finds the patterns, and it tries to predict what am I going to read next. So that is the basis of all AI. Take a lot of data, find the patterns, and use it to predict what's going to happen in the future, and keep improving this model until the data says that you're getting better and better at predicting what people want to read. So they're spending more time there, they're spending more money there. That's basically the goal of all this AI. I want you to realize that this is very sophisticated. A couple of years ago, well, maybe a couple of decades ago, tech sector came this concept of a mobile first company, like Careem or Food Panda, they're mobile first कि जी दे पहले उन्होंने ऐप बनाई थी फिर बाकी चीज बनाई थी कि लोग तो फोन पे इस्तेमाल करेंगे. Now the concept is AI first company. So who are the AI first companies? Amazon completely runs on AI, predicting what you want to buy. Netflix completely runs on AI. They're predicting what you want to watch. So today is the day, the time when everyone wants to be AI first. And not everybody can be AI first. These are some of the things you need to become AI first. You need a data pipeline. You need to develop algorithms. You need a platform on which to experiment. You need an infrastructure to run all these things. Amazon and Netflix can do what they're doing because they have all these things. They store all your data, they run algorithms on it, and they're constantly experimenting with it. When I say Google runs 100,000 experiments a year, what I mean is the Google I open right now might not look the same as the Google you open, because they're constantly running these A/B tests and comparing कि जी अगर मैंने search bar इतनी बड़ी कर दी, अगर मैंने उसका रंग इस तरह बदल दिया, तो are people getting a better experience? Are they using it more? So these are the kind of things AI companies have to constantly experiment with. कि if I make this change, if I tweak the algorithm like this, are people more engaged or not? So you cannot be AI first until you build out all these things. So I want you to realize Amazon and Netflix they have so many data scientists and so many people building infrastructure because that's what you need to be AI first. But you don't need all these things to benefit from AI. The examples we're going to be doing today are going to be about using AI in kind of the front end, but I want you to appreciate all the things that are going into the back end. So with that, let me jump into a few comments about generative AI before I kind of start showing you how you should be using it. So generative AI is a subset of the AI I've already talked about. The generative AI is the one that everyone's excited about today and talking about and thinks has the most economic value. Why? Because it's a creative form of AI. It's the AI that creates music, writing, code, all the things we thought only humans could do until relatively recently. And we figured out the mathematical patterns and the abilities that allow us to kind of compose these things in a creative way, in a feasible way, so that we can churn out more and more creative content, which is both exciting and leads to some of the kind of challenges we've already talked about. So let's talk about some of the basics behind generative AI, because I think that'll prepare you for kind of the examples I'm going to do ahead. Again, the basics are the same. all these generative AI tools are using past data to predict the future. If a generative AI tool is composing text, like ChatGPT is composing text, it's writing an answer based on a certain question you ask. How is it doing that? It has figured out a way to predict what is the most likely next word based on the previous word you wrote, and it keeps repeating that loop until it writes a full answer. But how does it do those predictions? It has scanned all freely available human writing, and it has figured out the mathematical patterns underlying it. And the more processing and crunching, number crunching we do, the more variables we find in the data, the better it becomes at predicting, the better it comes at understanding what words go together to keep certain tones. The better we get at understanding the mathematics behind language, behind art, behind music, the better we can train these models. But ChatGPT to mahino se nikli hui hai. Chances are you've already used it. Chances are you've already come to the conclusion that it has certain benefits, but there are other things on which it's not so useful to you. But there's a lot of exciting stuff that is being built on top of ChatGPT and other basic services right now. And that's called tuning your large language model. So large language model to ChatGPT and others ne bana diya. But we have the ability to make small changes to these so that they are better suited for our purposes. To give you an example, education ki dunya mein, the general perception is that Khan Academy is kind of taking the lead in AI in education. So they have not built their own large language model from scratch. They've taken ChatGPT. Because remember, ChatGPT made the amount of data that went in and the infrastructure needed was several years and probably billions of dollars. Even Khan Academy is not in a position to do that. What they are in a position to do is spend 1 year adding a limited amount of data at some expense and make ChatGPT better at answering academic questions. So if you have the general capabilities of ChatGPT, but you train it with some additional information, it can get better at answering the questions that are important to you. तो इस वक्त आप देखेंगे कि ज्यादातर जो नए startups आ रहे हैं generative AI में, they are mostly optimizing themselves for very specific applications. कि जी ChatGPT is good at getting me basic info, but it's not the best at running a customer service chatbot. It's not the best at selling me pizza or tires or answering questions about examination prep. So people are tuning these basic models to make better ones. And because we have kind of mastered how to make those big general models, now it's easy to go to the specialized smaller models at lower cost with lower effort. And that's what a generative AI is doing right now. It's kind of slicing up the core abilities we've developed and making it these more tuned, optimized sort of models. So where is generative AI being used? Pretty much everywhere. I mean, when I taught a class on AI for marketing recently, I mean, I saw that generative AI was being used to not only write emails to your prospective customers, but also to segment them based on very limited input from you. कि जी मेरे इतने type of clients होते हैं, तो can you, the AI would just kind of change the language slightly to appeal to different kinds of clients. It would use AI to predict when is the best time to send the email, to send the reply, to get the maximum engagement. So all of these marketing tools are incorporating AI in some way. All kinds of tools related to education, related to robotics, related to art, music. You'll basically find generative AI is coming everywhere. If it's in a bank, it's because even जो उनका एक बेसिक चैटबॉट है जो आपके सवाल जवाब देता है, they're using generative AI to make it better at answering questions. They want to use it in the banks to predict the best investment opportunities, to write the content they need. So they're basically coming up with better and better applications of generative AI as per specific contexts. But I want you to realize that generative AI, as powerful and exciting as it is and all the capabilities it opens in front of us, it has a lot of limitations as well. And we should be careful about that because these apply to all the places where it's used. To give you an example, let's say you start using generative AI tools, such as the tools in which you write a prompt and images are generated, videos are generated. Let's say you start using these in the classroom or even just kind of for general exposure and training purposes. आप ये एक prompt लिखते हैं, pizza eating hamster on a Hawaiian beach. So if you look at the different tools that take prompts and generate AI images, and remember, AI images are not finding one image online and presenting it as an answer. They are composing the image because the AI tool has looked through all the images available, the freely available ones, and it has seen कि जी जहाँ loves pizza लिखा होता है वो इन तस्वीरों में है, so it has figured out that this is what a pizza looks like. But if you run this prompt on different tools, pizza eating hamster on a Hawaiian beach, the two on the left side, well, at least on my left, I guess for you guys as well, it seems fine. It's a hamster eating a pizza. But if you look at the ones on the right side, the pizza is eating the hamster. So it's interpreting it differently. So you and I know that's nonsense. But sometimes when you let kids use these tools, it starts blurring their sense of reality. And that's where a lot of people are fearful that ye jo generative tools hain, they make it so easy to compose fictitious stuff that our own grasp of what is real, what is not real is going to get blurred. It's okay for you and me since we have a life outside of AI, but for the new generation that is being born in AI, will this be a problem that you have all these tools that are directing them in certain ways that you and I both know are wrong, but are just the output of AI? And this is not even one of the dangerous examples. Let me show you one of the dangerous examples. If you use AI to compose images, if you write down in an AI tool, committed janitor, ये चार तस्वीरें आ जाएंगी. Innocuous enough. But if you look carefully at it, AI is basically saying a committed janitor is always a Mexican person. Why is it saying that? Because if you look at most of the images of janitors online through American culture, they're mostly people of Mexican and Latino and minority background. So based on that, AI has learned that janitors tend to be of this background, but somebody using this tool will basically come to the conclusion that, well, janitors are always Mexican, and that's not the conclusion we want to give. Similarly, if you type in assertive firefighter, it'll make an assertive firefighter based on AI, but the firefighter will always be male because the AI uses probability and says firefighters are always male. Maybe even that doesn't seem so dangerous to you, but look at this. When you use AI to learn language, nobody is editing and auditing everything the tools say. They're just running on AI. So if you take a language like Hungarian that has its own nuances, if you go from English to Hungarian, she is a doctor, he is a nurse, it translates it like that. But if you translate the same Hungarian back to English, it actually translates it to he is a doctor and she is a nurse. Why? Because AI uses probability. The way the Hungarian language is composed, it's not the gender is not explicit. So when AI has to translate it to English, it just goes by probability that based on all the data I have, doctors are more likely to be male and nurses are more likely to be female. So the problem with AI is that it amplifies our biases. And I want you to realize that AI is never going to be a magical answer. It is not really coming up with smart answers, even if it seems like that. It's just looking through all the data we give it, finding the patterns and trends, and repeating and amplifying them. And we as people can be very biased and narrow in how we interpret things. And if that's the kind of, and the data that we leave online that AI is learning from tends to also be representative of a limited set of people who have their own biases and narrowness in their vision, but all those biases are getting amplified. So when you use an AI tool and it gives an answer that seems biased and limited, realize it's just amplifying the information it finds online. So without your own external education and exposure, if you rely just on AI, you're going to get a very limited point of view. So be careful about that and think about how you can maintain your own breadth and exposure while limiting your use of AI to the places where it's most useful to you. But with that, I want to kind of jump into some ways in which I feel like you should be using AI. Chat GPT, आप सबने इस्तेमाल किया, you've had fun with it, you've tried jokes on it, you've tried to break it, you've tried to make it hallucinate. What I found is कि देखें, ChatGPT is just getting better and better with time. So if you use the paid versions, the new versions, you'll find कि उसमें capabilities बढ़ती जा रही हैं कि जी PDF को summarize कर दें, images generate कर दें, videos generate कर दें. The reason these things are only available in the paid versions is because they're expensive. You know, you have all that computational ability in the background. And I want you to realize this is not like a search result. Google का search result तो ये होता है ना कि जी it just needs to lift certain answers and put them there. The amount of computation in real time is relatively limited, although it's still there. But यहाँ पर तो it's actually computing quite a bit in real time. So it's a slow and clunky process. And the more you try to do with ChatGPT or any AI, the more hardware and backend and infrastructure and energy you need, which is why the process is slow, clunky, and expensive. But even if you limit yourself to the free version of ChatGPT and the free version of the tools that I'm going to show you right now, they still have utility for you. Think about the way you want to save time. So for example, when I was doing this with the executives at Hewlett Packard, they wanted to come up with, new marketing ideas to launch a computer. So let's say I try to use ChatGPT for that. Give me creative ideas on how to market a new computer. So that's relatively straightforward for ChatGPT. It's saying, and I like that it's organized. If I'm on the job, I need to think about problems in a structured, organized way. And ChatGPT does that. It uses headings. It knows what's an optimal length of an answer. Even if it's not telling me exactly how to do something, it's giving me ideas. So it's a good brainstorming buddy. So let's say I have a job with many aspects to it. Maybe I sometimes work in marketing, sometimes I work in finance, sometimes I work in HR because I'm a general manager. I don't have everything on my fingertips. I need to put on the hat of a marketer. So let me start thinking about everything a marketer needs. I can go to ChatGPT and use it like a reference book and get it to update me in real time. What are all the heads I should be thinking about? So for example, ये पढ़ के शायद मुझे idea आता है कि, to really think about how to market a computer, I need some inspiration. And I don't even know what is considered the best example of an ad made to market a computer. So maybe I asked ChatGPT, what is a good example of how a specific computer was marketed? So maybe it gives me something more specific. So it says MacBook Air 2008. That's actually a pretty long time ago, but maybe it was known for the way it was marketed. So they talk about a few different things, messaging, the keynote address. Again, it's a very structured, easy to follow way. Just reading it, it's not trying to give me the answer. I'm not taking it as the gospel or the final answer. I'm taking it as these are ideas. And reading this answer makes me think about more things and more questions I can ask. So to completely flip it around, let's say I'm preparing for a meeting and I want some ideas. Let's say, give me 3 talking points on why someone would want to buy software services from me. So let's say I'm in a situation in which I need to make a quick decision. I need some information. So it's giving me these points. Customized software is what people want. There is collaboration through the cycle. I have a track record of client satisfaction. So in some ways, it's training me for something I have to think about quickly. If I'm in a job in which I have to do lots of mini jobs throughout the day, sometimes context switching, कि जी अभी मैं sales mode में आ रहा हूँ, अभी मैं HR mode में आ रहा हूँ. A tool like this that gives you a lot of information very quickly on specific questions can help you think about what to do. I mean, in the recent past, we had Google search and you would get a lot of information, but it wasn't structured like this. Think about it this way, okay, this is not picking answers from one specific website or one specific source. It is composing what it considers an original response based on scanning all the responses out there. So basically, in some ways, it's giving you what it considers the average of the best possible answers. And a lot of times that answer is pretty coherent. And a lot of times, if you don't yourself have very specialized knowledge beyond what ChatGPT can offer you, it's actually pretty useful. And that's what I found. Okay, when I need to come up to speed on something new, when I need to start learning something new, ChatGPT is useful. And the newer versions of it are even more useful. And especially when I want to go into niche areas, it can be quite helpful. So for example, sometimes working in software, I need to quickly understand data privacy for children. So let's say, tell me what are the precautions I need to take when storing data in an educational game for children. So something fairly technical. So let's see if it gives me specifics. So it's mentioned right away, KG COPA compliance, which is something you need to know about if you work in this field. It talks about GDPR.
But the assigned date was when.
Someone had a question? Okay. So a lot of it is fairly general. It's not going to replace your lawyer anytime soon, but it at least tells me what to start thinking about. KG, you should be familiar with these laws, you should be familiar with these steps, and then I can have an intelligent conversation with my legal person. Because if I just go flat to that person as I've done in the past, it's a much longer process. He has to educate me before we can have a reasonable conversation on it. But if I use ChatGPT's ability to give me a lot of information on a topic very quickly, and information that is representing general perceptions, that is kind of chunky and has some amount of details and which I can extract further details from, it prepares me better for those kinds of meetings. It prepares me better for the next steps. And it gives me confidence that I have the basics in place before I go ask someone for help. So, I mean, similarly, you could ask for help in composing a contract that write me a contract to develop a new piece of software. So the truth is, it's not going to give me anything perfect, but it's a good starting point. You know, maybe you're an individual entrepreneur, maybe getting time from the lawyer is expensive and you want the minimal one, you want to make a few templates yourself. You can find some online, but you can also just get ChatGPT to compose them for you. I can make small changes to this prompt and ask it, you know, okay, make me a contract for a piece of software within this budget and stuff like that. So I can give it tighter specifications and it can tweak it accordingly, because this tool is all about composing. Kiji, how do you compose an answer based on the prompt given to it? And what we're finding is that even using simple prediction, it does a pretty good job. It's able to predict what we want and what's useful for us the bulk of the time. Doesn't mean it's perfect, doesn't mean it's out there to replace the working professionals, but they can also use this to kind of supplement and to offload some of the more menial tasks. I think that's the main message I want to give you guys. Okay, you need to figure out how to use these tools in a way so that your time is spent on more strategic things and the AI is doing the more generic stuff. So when you need to give someone a generic response or you need to give someone a generic training, use the AI tools to facilitate that. So your time can be spent more on strategic thinking, how to make things better, and expanding your own knowledge so you can point out when the AI is wrong in the cases where it actually matters. So this is simple text. And as I mentioned to you, ChatGPT is by design a generalist. It's getting better with time because every couple of months they release a new version. There's more data trained on it, so it has more background information. There's a more sophisticated algorithm running on it, which means they identify more variables. The way to think about variables is, वो आपको याद होगा स्कूल के ज़माने से straight line prediction y is equal to mx plus c, कि जी y is a function of x with one variable, कि जी x change होता है तो y भी change होता है. What AI is doing, what ChatGPT is doing is, it is taking billions of variables. It's not just X which affects Y, it's X1, X2, X3, all the way to X billion that all have an impact on the output of Y. And the AI is able to do the calculations and figure out the patterns much better than you and I can. We can only do the kind of stuff pencil and paper पे एक दो variables ज़्यादा maybe maximum 3 dimensions में we can think. But the computer can think in billions of dimensions and figure out the billions of inputs that are affecting the output. So every time that model is updated, they increase the number of inputs and they increase the factors that go into the prediction, which is why the model theoretically is getting better and better. But you'll see all kinds of articles that say, hey, the new version isn't as good as the old one. So it's always a work in progress. Those of you who are from technical backgrounds might be familiar with the concept of overfitting. कि जी जब आप बहुत सारे variables निकालते हैं, तो then it's actually not better at predicting unfamiliar situations. And sometimes ये भी हो जाता है इस AI में, and that's why it fails. But generally speaking, we are pretty quickly figuring out how to predict better and better, which is why the models are getting better and better. And they're getting more and more capable. आपने ChatGPT के paid version देखा होगा, सोनार की जी वीडियो बन सकती है, बहुत अच्छी बन सकती है, उसमें real world physics हो सकती है. To play around with these things, you need to spend some money, which for a lot of people is quite worthwhile. And you need to kind of be patient because these things take a lot of crunching power, so they take time. So you definitely need to kind of get on a cadence. But the truth is, overall, what we're seeing is these tools are saving people's time. I mean, I have some experience with the gaming industry. Gaming industry में आप लोगों से पूछेंगे बहुत ज़्यादा monotonous काम भी होता है उसमें कि if you're an artist, you might need to draw lots of different characters that are quite similar, थोड़ा सा color change करके, lots of frames. Even within a few years, we've got more automated tools that simplify it. But AI has simplified it further कि जी आप बस prompt लिखते हैं कि जी I need a fairy-like character with purple hair or whatever, and it'll start giving you examples. So even if it doesn't give you the final art, it gives you some reference baseline that makes it faster for you to decide what you want to do. So speaking of text to images, again, you'll find all kinds of tools online that, based on written prompts, generate images for you. So over here, I think I was testing a prompt, a futuristic city or a future looking city or whatever. KG, I want to see images of that. Why would I want to see images of that? Because अगर मैं Google पे जाता हूँ, I can only pick from a finite list of images that are already there. Let's say I'm doing something, I'm making an original presentation, तो मैंने थोड़ी सी I want कि मेरा भी अपना एक touch हो कि जी मैंने original image बनाई हो. I don't have the time and energy and the resources कि जी मैं original image हर slide के लिए बनाऊं. But I can use these AI tools to just generate some images that look original. I saw a few weeks ago, I was reading an article in Dawn, and at the bottom it was actually written, image generated by AI. You know, मैंने तो सोचा ही नहीं कि ऊपर जो image है, where did that come from? But just because they had mentioned image generated by AI, I realized, you know, they're probably also saving their time and money and effort by using AI to generate the pictures that go with the articles. Because chances are they never invested in artists to make them. They just had people spend time going online and finding appropriate images. But that was slow, that was costly. It's not a job people enjoy doing. So they've kind of outsourced that to AI. कि जी images हम AI से बना लेते हैं अपने articles के, and हम बस mention कर देंगे जी the credit is to AI so that people know and इस पे कोई confusion ना हो. Pretty neat. I mean, if the newspapers are saving time and effort by making images through AI, it must have some value. And I think presentations, the biggest challenge is you want the images to be consistent. You don't want some of the images are cartoonish and some of the images are too formal looking. So you can use these AI tools to set the tones and make them consistent, even if they're original images. I can tell you in the business world, people have been using these AI tools for these brainstorming sessions, coming up with a new product idea. So let's say we want to kind of look at something new. Let's say we want to kind of imagine a new kind of product. Let's say we want to try to visualize it. You know, I've seen some companies do brainstorming sessions or new car designs and stuff. So let's say we are trying to generate some images with AI. Let's see what might be possible. It's given an example, kangaroo carrying a corgi in cartoon style. So इतने specificity से आप उससे request कर सकते हैं कि जी one animal carrying another. It has to be in a cartoonish style. I mean, what kind of image might I want? Maybe I want children in a classroom looking engaged and excited. Maybe that's what I need for my particular context. Let's see if it generates it. As I mentioned to you, it's going to be a little slow. I mean, I gave it a simple prompt, but I mean, it's generated these images. I can use them. They could all be used in any particular context I want, and they seem to serve the purpose. But let's say I want to get more specific. Let's say I want to say generate image children in a classroom looking engaged in a classroom with a teacher. You can play around with the prompt however you want. With a teacher in front. So, you know, पिछले वालों में the teacher wasn't there, and maybe I want the teacher is there. So maybe if I put it in the prompt, that'll come. Let's see if that fixes it. So, I mean, this is very basic for AI, right? It knows what a teacher is. It knows what the students are. But to be honest, looking at what it composed here, it hasn't done a good job. So my gut feeling here is that when it scans through images of children looking engaged, it needs to focus on their faces. So it's hard to put it together in a way where the teacher is facing it as well. But you can play around with this and you'll find, I mean, there are more results. So maybe, so it starts with 4 just because that takes the minimal computational part. Oh, it wants me to spend money. I'm not doing that right now. So let's just forget that. So I'll just close that. But yeah, when you go to the paid versions, it can do better stuff. It can do more sophisticated stuff. It can allow you to play around with styles and all. And that's true of all the AI tools. To be honest, even for these basic kind of generation examples, what you'll find is that most of the tools will say, even if we don't charge you right away, you do have to kind of put in your credit card so that they can charge you after 7 days or stuff. So I mean, if you're savvy about it, you can use it for free for a few days and figure out if it's actually useful to you before you commit to it. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's what you need to do for AI, because there are dozens and dozens of tools for everything. So once you start playing around with tools, chances are you want to start with the free ones. Chances are you will want to maybe try some of the paid ones through the first couple of days in which they don't charge you right away and give you a chance to cancel. But once you find something that's useful, that's saving your time, it might be worth the money, right? Depending on what you're doing. So I think a lot of people in content writing, a lot of people in branding and marketing materials, उन्होंने इतना ज़्यादा लिखना होता है कि it makes sense to use a tool that automates it somewhat if their focus is volume rather than being very unique. Because let's face it, if you're in an industry where how you write and how you compose, the uniqueness is the important part of it, chances are you would only use AI for inspiration and try to make something even better. But if you're in an industry where it's really just about the volume and getting things done and using your own time and energy on other stuff, then it makes sense to be using these tools. And I don't want you to believe that the tools are just limited to writing text and making pictures. There are AI tools for everything. I was reading yesterday about कि people are now experimenting with AI tools कि जी आप financial statement दे देते हैं उसको basics balance sheet वगैरह cash flow statement देते हैं and वो सारी calculations आपको करके देते हैं. So it's not like a running Excel sheet. It's actually using AI to figure out where the data is, what the parts are useful to you, what are the trends to find. And these tools are still pretty early stage and they're not perfect. So you're not going to replace your financial analyst anytime soon, but you can use those tools to simplify things. And if you, as someone who has expertise in that field, can figure out that this tool works very well and is just as good as what I'm doing, then you can give that part of the work to that tool. So just to give you an example of a tool that might be beyond just writing and drawing, I was just playing around this morning and I was trying to find something, KG, simplify the process of websites. Again, when I taught the marketing class a few months ago, I found some tools, KG, UI, UX. My work involves UI, UX, but I'm not a UI, UX person. So I rely on the UI, UX person to even make me mockups. But the AI can do that first stage for me and allow me to go to the next step of showing it to my investors and stuff. So the purpose of having these tools is not to replace completely what professionals do. The professionals' work is still needed. They're needed to integrate, to change, to make better stuff, and to tell you what's right and what's wrong and how to use things, and to pass judgment on AI. But for someone like me who is jumping between roles, and chances are all of you are like that, you have lots of little mini roles you're playing on your job. And in some of them, if you just hand it off to AI and get it done faster, you can focus on the parts of your job that you can hand off to AI and just make things more efficient. So to look at this example again, this is not specifically a website I'm endorsing. I just Googled through Kiji, who makes websites through AI. So I found this 10 web. So it says create a new website with AI. So let's see how that might work. So do I want to create an online store? Do I want to create an informational website? So in deciding what kind of pattern and template to generate for you, it starts by figuring out what are you trying to do, because it has basically used AI to find patterns कि जो sales की website होती है वो उसकी शक्ल सूरत ऐसी होती है, जो informational website blog type होती है उसकी ऐसी होती है. So its first decision point is really just what is the purpose of your website. So if I say it's a store, what is the store's type? Like, what do I want to sell? Do I want to, so it gives me some examples here. Auto dealer, baby store. Okay, let's go with the baby store. I recently just had a baby, so I'm thinking about that. So I think that's a good example. Okay, baby store. Okay, give the store a name. What's a creative name for a baby store? Babies are us. Well, there are no points for creativities here. So I'll just write down what first thing that comes to my mind. Describe your store. And again, the more specifically you can describe it, the better the AI can suggest, what should it look like based on how people have described their different websites. So much variety for anything you might want to buy for your baby, including clothes, food, and toys. Okay, so that's a very limited description. You can do a much better job when you play around with it yourself. But Do I own a domain for my website? No, I'm looking to save money, so I'll say no. Enter the desired domain name as long as it's not charging me. Let's call it babies or us, which I guess would already be taken, but no harm done if it's not asking for money. So now, it's telling me the AI pre-fill the products and categories to speed up your onboarding. So it's already created categories. So it's using AI to predict, instead of me having to give it a list of कि जी ये pages होने चाहिए website पे, it's using AI and finding the common trends and the strands of patterns between wording कि जी baby section में सारी चीजें होती हैं. So let's just say I keep it simple and say जो भी आपने products और categories निकाल दी हैं बस सही हैं. Let's finalize. Now it's the exciting part. It's giving me visual feedback. As the website is composing in the background, it's telling me कि मैंने ये चीज कर ली है. Blank website बना दिया, home page बना दिया, ताकि आप ये ना समझें कि उसने बस copy paste करके आपको कुछ दे दिया है. All of this processing is happening at the back end, and it'll show you a final result. And as I've told you, these AI tools are never going to be very fast just because there's so much going on in the background, and they'll get faster with time. I mean, remember the time when, well, you guys don't remember the time when internet was really slow. You just take fast internet for granted, but it's like that, right? It's just going to come to a point where everything is very fast and we'll forget about the days in which it was very slow. But for now, you'll have to bear with it. Okay, AI can do useful things, but at a relatively slow rate. And I mean, this is nothing. If you're composing big, heavy videos, it could take quite a while. But let's see how far it's got. Okay, congrats, your website was successfully created. So all set, let's see, preview and edit. Ta-da! I mean, I feel very proud of making something, even though I've done nothing, but it's still better than just kind of buying a template of a website, right? That's the cool thing about it. Huh? That looks nice. The baby photo's nice. There's pictures, there's a carousel down here, ultimate baby store, shop by categories. Now, remember the purpose of using the AI tool to generate it, and just so you think about what's the best way to use this, it's not just giving you a template, it's actually giving you the code and stuff, and you can modify it, but I guess you have to pay for that. So if you take the paid version, you can actually take the website, you can make changes to it, you can add stuff to it, but the AI has simplified the step about just setting it up. So someone like me who considers himself technical, but not much of a designer, मेरा एक रोड ब्लॉक आ जाता है पहले स्टेप में कि जी मैंने एक वेबसाइट के थोड़ी सी थिंकिंग करनी है, बट आई डोंट इवन नो वेयर टू स्टार्ट कि शुरू में क्या तस्वीर होगी, शुरू में कितने पेजेस होंगे, देन आई गो टू समवन एल्स, डिस्कस इट विद देम, दे स्पेंड सम टाइम. तो इसी स्टेप में कुछ टाइम जाया हो जाता है व्हेन ऑल आई रियली वांट टू डू इज शो अ प्रोटोटाइप टू एन इन्वेस्टर और अ पार्टनर और समथिंग. So the whole point of the AI is it is simplifying the part that can be simplified. So it's not giving me the final solution. It's not giving me the final website. Chances are once I'm ready to make the website, I'll actually do it the same way I do it right now. But the AI simplifies the step of getting to the validation, of getting some kind of group discussion going. If my designer is facing a block, कि जी कुछ idea नहीं आ रहा, कि जी सारी मिलती जुलती ideas हैं, they can play around with these tools to get ideas and get their creative juices flowing. They can mix and match from different models they find. Because of course, the goal is not for the whole world to start using the same tools and get the same answers. The goal is for people to use these tools where it makes their lives easier. Maybe just making the website is the smallest part of what you do. So you'd rather just outsource that to AI and you focus on the data and the product and the investors and the communication and the marketing and the user acquisition. So that's what you need to figure out. Kiji, where is my time best spent? The general consensus right now in the working world is AI is your co-pilot. Figure out what are the things that you don't want to do. They're monotonous, they're not very risky, किसी volume पे करना होगा, someone else could do it better than you. Just pass those things off to AI. It could be website design, it could be writing things, it could be composing things, it could be brainstorming things. There's tools for everything, and it's very hard to figure out which are the best tools because we're just too early to give people specific answers for everything. I think there is a portal, it's called something like there's an AI for that, or is there an AI for that, or something like that. So if you search there, it gives you suggestions for everything you do. I want AI to improve photos. I want AI to predict what to make for my party tomorrow or something. So by category, it predicts it gives you suggestions on tools that people are already using. So more and more, you'll find कि इस तरह की aggregators भी बन रही हैं कि one central place you go to figure out AI में क्या available है, क्या इस्तेमाल हो सकते हैं, लोगों ने उसको क्या ratings दिए हुए हैं. The same way we have the App Store right now, the same way we had Google search and aggregators and stuff like that. तो ये सारी चीजें बन रही हैं because people are realizing कि AI की application और utility तो हर जगह है. but it's not easy to figure out which is the best tool. And I feel like we shouldn't be telling you that there's a best tool because there isn't. There's a variety of tools. You figure out the one that works best for you. Sometimes compare and contrast multiple of them to see what gives you the best answers in specific contexts. And being the kind of person who plays with these toys, uses them to get more volume, better answers is really the key to success today. बार बार लोग यही कहते जा रहे हैं ना, क्लीशे बन रहा है कि AI is not replacing us, it's replacing the people who can't use AI at all. But if you are using AI to supplement your job, you can do your job in a better way. That's where the world is moving. And I'll be honest with you, it's not easy in the sense that even on my day-to-day job, I'm still much used to relying on myself. I mean, I use AI for fun, but I don't use it to replace my work. But gradually I'm seeing that there are lots of places where I can be using it to save my time, and people will be more and more expecting me to do it, which is why I need to be well versed in it. So over here, I'll just kind of pause my spiel and hope that the kind of things I showed you kind of triggered your juices and creative ideas and made you want to try out more of these things and think about how to use them and appreciate why they're important and how they work and what their limitations are. I think we have a bunch of questions, so maybe Samin will be picking some of those, and hopefully you're tinkering with all these things in the meantime, and that'll kind of make you think about other questions as well.
Yes, Joseph, we have a few questions already, and I was also tinkering with this website and it looks really neat. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. And a lot of people are also asking for the links. I've shared the link, and we will also share all the content used after this webinar. So don't worry, you'll get access to everything. So Jazib, एक सवाल आया है, वो ये है कि can Jazib share any helpful AI tools or apps to better organize your day-to-day work tasks, especially in the context of your own tasks and multiple people you might be overseeing or managing? So in the realm of management, अगर कोई tools वगैरह आप recommend करते हैं?
Sure, that's a great question. I think, again, if you look at the early success stories of AI in stuff, there is a tool called EV.ai, EVIE.ai. It's a tool out of Singapore. So उसमें ये है कि, and it's actually kind of creepy because it takes over your email from you when you're scheduling an appointment with someone, because email जब appointment set होते हैं back and forth होता है, जी आप इस वक्त आ रहे हैं, इस वक्त आ रहे हैं, आप मेरा calendly देख लें. So it takes over that conversation from you and it figures out when to schedule the meeting for you, and chances are EV is talking to each other because उसने बंदे ने भी EV लगाया हुआ, आपने भी लगाया हुआ है. But over time, it finds your preferences. Do you prefer not to have meetings on Monday? Do you prefer to have meetings in the evening? So there are tools like that independently that act like they are humans, but they are actually AI bots that are taking over managing your calendar. To be honest, I mean, I'm not at the point where I hand off scheduling tasks and stuff to AI, and maybe that's just because it is quite a shift in how you work. So it's not an easy switch for people to make. But I believe it is getting quite common for AI to take over the scheduling of tasks. So EV, I gave you an example. But everything like Asana and all general project management tools, you'll find उसमें AI के elements थोड़े-थोड़े करके आ रहे हैं, which are basically around just kind of predicting ये task किस तरह कर लें and इस तरह delegate कर लें and stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And speaking of Asana, हम लोग like at LUMSx, we're using ClickUp for our project management, और उसके अंदर भी the AI tool is pretty neat. So you guys can also check that out. It creates templates for you and organizes your workflows. So that's also a useful tool. So we had another question, Jazib. So somebody's asking, what will the future of work look like?
I love that question because right now I'm trying to design a new course at LUMS called Future. Well, I was going to call it Future of Work. Now even that's become a cliche. So I'm going to call it AI and the Future of Work and Education, just to build on that. So, I mean, in some ways, the future of work is already here, right? Most, well, maybe not most, I shouldn't take it for granted. A lot of people work remotely. A lot of people work fractionally, right? Like, so they have 2 or 3 jobs in which they do X amount of hours per week. So that's also part of the future of work, KG, having has a number of high impact roles rather than one standard sort of job, just because that benefits companies better based on certain expertise you have. I think generally speaking, work is getting more personalized and giving you more autonomy. And that's why AI is coming in. Okay, future of work really is to give people more freedom in how they do it and to give them more choice in where to focus their energies. And AI is just facilitating that. Can you take over the easy generic stuff and give people more space for what they want to do? But I think learning new things, understanding new things, getting excited about new things, and thinking about how to use them is really the future of work. And it's not just AI. There are other things that are coming up, whether it's climate related, quantum related, and all kinds of new stuff.
Thank you so much. So we have another question. Do you think that AI can leave human thinking capacity behind in terms of daily activities and jobs?
I mean, that's a great question again. I feel like it can definitely get to the point where it can answer all the stuff that's important to us in a work context. But at the end of the day, is work just about information? No. A lot of, I would say most of my work today, even as a fairly technical person, is stakeholder management, keeping lots of people happy when there are lots of conflicting objectives. And AI is not going to do that anytime soon. I mean, there is no way to quantify how to make your internal and external stakeholders happy, whether you're talking about donors or your colleagues and stuff. So there's a lot of skills that can only be developed on the job and in the real world that AI is not taking over anytime soon. But generally speaking, I mean, I'd love for the education system to reflect that a lot of recall and computation and stuff is kind of passing on to AI. So we just need, it's actually more important to understand how it works and how to use it than to kind of be able to do all of it yourself. I'd say that.
Yeah, I agree. And in education, like a lot of times they make this analogy कि जब calculator आया था तो वो वाले उस तरह की कुछ skills होते हैं जो redundant हो जाते हैं, and then there are other skills that become more important. So I completely resonate with that. Jazib, there's another question. I have a sales work. How can I help and improve my sales and marketing?
Sorry, so I have a sales job or?
Yeah, somebody
Okay.
works in sales and they're
Okay.
just asking what they can use to increase their sales and marketing.
So again, great question. I have definitely incorporated skills around sales whenever I've taught classes on business communication at LUMS. And I think you're safe. I don't think AI is going to take your job away anytime soon. I mean, it definitely depends on the type of sales, but a lot of sales are still very much in person relationship based. So you should use AI to organize it and to maybe predict what is the right cadence at which to follow up with people and to send them reminders and stuff, or to predict who is likely to need the product. But to be honest, most of the value add in sales is really understanding the product, communicating it, following up well with your client. I mean, I do a lot of sales work mostly in software. And I would say the most important skill really is winning the confidence of the client based on your past experience. So when I talk a lot about कि जब मैंने इसी तरह का project किया था, उसमें ये मसला आया था, हमने उसको anticipate किया था और हम उसको इस दफा ज्यादा anticipate करते हैं because we know exactly ये problems आते हैं. So the most important skill for me in sales is finding patterns that actually only humans can find. KG, drawing connections between past projects and your learnings and how they apply to this one. That gives the person confidence कि अगर इसने ये चीज पहले की हुई है, they would do a good job this time. So let me buy it from them, whether it's a product or a service or whatever. So anywhere where AI, any tool that can help you just kind of organize those lessons and think about the commonalities between different endeavors and projects would make you better at sales. But I think nobody's looking for AI to really take over sales. The only place where it is being used is kind of वो जो tech world में है ना, lots of online user acquisition, उसको जितना automate कर सकें कर लें. लेकिन वहां पे भी I'm not hearing कि, it's completely handed off to AI. There is still a lot of value of the growth manager, the growth hacker, and who understands how to use all these tools.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And I feel like it's so important to always remember that the human touch will always be important. And it's like just striking the right balance between human and artificial intelligence to do the work more efficiently. So we have another question. Everyone's talking about how AI and machine learning tools like GPT are changing the game in finance. Do you think it's enough for us in the finance world to just know how to use these tools, or should we be diving deeper into understanding how they actually work? I'm curious about your take on how much tech know-how we need to keep up with the future of finance.
Oh, that's a great question. And I've talked to a lot of people in finance who are trying to come up with their own ways to use ChatGPT to make innovative products, because this is the right time. If somebody comes up with something that a lot of people in finance can benefit from, you can make a breakthrough, right? It's the right time because it's early and everyone's thinking and talking about it. In general, I would say your technical savvy of how to use these tools can only be an asset in the world of finance. It doesn't replace your technical school and certification knowledge because there's still a lot of practical knowledge in the finance world on how to train people, how to do the deals and stuff that the tech is not going to take over anytime soon. The tech should be used for the boring part of finance, which is making the pitch decks, doing the calculations. There are already some good tools out there, but none that have dominated the market. They still have limitations and errors. So your ability to see those errors and understand what's happening at the back end is still very important. So I would say learn how to use these tools in conjunction with your other skills, because that is what will make you a superior performer. But also think about how you can use these tools to improve your organization as a whole, because there is a white space for original ideas, specifically in finance. And again, that's true of all the emerging technologies. And people are very excited at the moment about how to use AI in better and better ways. Some of the AI trainings I've done have been for the local banks. And their main question has been, how can I use AI to predict where to invest, to predict who's going to default and stuff? So those are areas of hot consideration in the finance sector.
Right. Thank you. This is really helpful. So, Jazib, I've noticed there's someone who's experiencing this. They have a concern that because they've started to use AI a lot, it's limiting their ability to critically think and evaluate. So they're just asking, like, is this normal, or how do I get over this feeling?
I mean, I don't feel like that should be the case. I mean, even learning about AI and using it should feel like an intellectual enterprise. And maybe the right way to approach it is, as I said, understand what's under the hood. Don't just treat it as an app you're using, but understand how AI works, why data matters, so biases kahan se aate hain. The reason I want you to understand those fundamentals is because I feel like it gives you a more in-depth look. I am somewhat concerned, and everyone is concerned about बच्चों के लिए जब हम AI को tools उनके हाथ में डालते हैं कि जी बच्चा take for granted कि जी YouTube knows what I want to watch and Netflix knows what I want to watch. If you're growing up in a world where there's too much AI and you haven't seen the world without AI, I think it kind of limits your sense of what reality is. So I think people are concerned about that. जैसे मैंने आपको example दी थी ना कि ये जो text to image tools हैं, people are already concerned in schools के is it blurring reality for kids कि जी मैं किसी भी चीज की तस्वीर बना देता हूँ तो I don't even realize it's just fiction. And so if you don't spend enough time in the real world, you stop understanding what is the real world and what is fiction. And maybe AI is kind of speeding up that problem. So I would say for the kids, I would be a little careful just to kind of educate them. And I think there's a movement in that as well, that to educate kids on what AI is doing, where it's okay to use it, where you should ignore it and stuff like that. But for us at our stage who are jumping into it after not being a part of it for a very long time, I feel like it is something that like when I use ChatGPT, I don't feel like it's dumbing down my interactions. I feel like it's forcing me to be creative and to think about how to get the most out of it, knowing, and also it keeps me on my toes to say, wow, that was a bad answer. I'm not going to use it. So that's the right way to think about it.
Right. I agree with that thinking. And it's really interesting to see a lot of people are having a conversation in the chat as well, and they're responding to each other. So that's always good to see.
I
Jazib,
hope
I
they're
think
real people and not AI bots talking to each other.
well, you never know. I think one last question that we have is somebody's asking if there's an AI tool that can find scientific articles for you if you define a domain or a specific topic that you know of.
I mean, I wouldn't even say you need specifically AI for that. I mean, beyond your general searches, there will be several portals that make it easy to find scientific research by topic, because where the AI comes in is not finding the content, but predicting what content is useful for you. So most of the portals right now, they would have that capability to learn from your search history and predict that, which is kind of standard AI. And generative AI would be to actually compose stuff that you would find useful, but maybe that's not science anymore, right? You want to read what is kind of more credible by written sources. So I would say you'll definitely find tools that will describe themselves like that using AI to find science research and stuff. But what they're basically doing is probably not very different from when LinkedIn recommends that you read this article as well, which is fine. It's still useful. But if you're a true scientist, you probably don't want to just rely on recommendations. You want to do broader research. So you should kind of go more brute force rather than relying on AI to figure out what you want. You might want to use AI to predict out of all the content in the article, which is the most useful for you. And even what ChatGPT's advanced version does is it allows you to kind of feed in an entire article and ask for a summary and stuff. So उस तरह के tools तो बहुत हैं, and you'll find those.
Yeah, I think that tool similar to that is Chat PDF. You can like upload your articles and it gives you a summary of whatever. And you can even chat with that PDF. You can ask questions. अच्छा इसमें data set क्या था? Research method कौन सा इस्तेमाल हुआ था? So things like that, I agree. So there's another question that we have. How do you Hello, do you have any tips on how we can teach people in our teams to adopt AI, especially with people with different levels of comfort with tech? With so many options, so many changes, it's hard to avoid information bombardment. So, any advice on how to structure these trainings?
So structuring the trainings for AI. So on a slight tangent, I'll tell you that when you're trying to learn about AI yourself, I mean, there's never been a time in the world when there's so much easily available free online information to learn. You probably know about the usual suspects like Coursera, IBM के अपने courses हैं, Nvidia के अपने हैं. One website I generally recommend to people is deeplearning.ai because I feel like they do a good job of recognizing के AI में नई नई चीजें बहुत जल्दी आ रही हैं, so we should make short customized courses for people, and it's all free. They're threatening to make it paid at some point, so watch the free stuff while you can. Andrew Ng is one of the most recognizable names in AI, so it's definitely great to kind of see how he's put together these short practical sort of courses. And there's a whole range of technical and non-technical content, so you can go in order if you want to learn them. Quite a few good books that have helped me learn about AI, and two of them are by Pakistanis. So Kareem Lakhani at Harvard Business School writes about AI. Some of his articles and books are great. Then Amir Hussain at the University of Texas is also just released his second book on AI. So I've definitely found their material quite useful in understanding the basics, specifically in business applications. And one thing I found useful is MIT has these courses called the Independent Activities period in January, where anyone can make a course of their interest. So a lot of times you'll find unki websites online because those classes are meant to be shared. So they keep all the lectures and all the stuff online. So quite a few ideas I shared with you today are from such courses. So if you look at MIT's Independent Activities period, you'll find classes on AI and stuff. But coming to your actual question, Kiji, how do I structure it so that it's accessible to everyone? I mean, the right way to think about it is AI is really just new for everyone. Even if someone's very technical, chances are they're not very well versed in how to use it in a work context. They're well versed in the math behind it and stuff like that. But structuring a training, moving from the simpler content to the more complex one, make it interesting for everyone by talking about the biases and the limitations and the opportunities. That's what I try to do today, Kiji. Get you excited about how Netflix and Nvidia are being affected, but also make you think about the concerns about the gender bias and the language bias and stuff like that. So when you make it that holistic, that it applies to all aspects, I think it becomes engaging to everyone. I would really go with the assumption that people are not very well versed in practical AI in general, so you can all start in the same place. But I wouldn't limit myself to the standard stuff like ChatGPT and all. I think when I've had trainings that are too focused on that, people feel like ये चीज हमने kind of exposure मिल चुका है, ये चीज हमने सीख ली है. So make sure you kind of move up the gradient and show them some of the more complex things to kind of get them excited about AI से ये चीजें भी हो सकती हैं.
Right. Those are some really helpful resources. And I can like myself vouch for deeplearning.ai. मैंने भी काफी कुछ उसी से सीखा है. And somebody was asking about like, what is that one course that we can start with when we start learning AI? So what I recommended was AI for Everyone on Coursera and Yankai. What about you? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I would say AI for Everyone on Coursera. It's the same professor who is Andrew Ng hai usme, and he has that on deeplearning.ai as well. I would say, I mean, try all of them. Try the IBM ones, try the Nvidia ones, because they're not designed to be very elaborate. They're meant to be introductory. And the books I mentioned to you, Kareem Lakhani and Amir Hussain, the MIT course I mentioned to you, you should use all of these resources in conjunction because they all take slightly different angles. So, and easiest way, I mean, I learned most of what I know about AI through LinkedIn, just following the hashtags, just following people who are saying interesting things about AI, because then the AI of LinkedIn sends me more AI content. So that is the future.
Right. All right. I think this brings us to an end. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and staying very engaged throughout the lesson, throughout the session. And thank you, Jazib, for such a wonderful session and for sharing such great resources. हम जो भी resources mentioned हुए हैं throughout the webinar, I tried to link all those up in the group chat, but what I will do is send you guys an email with all the resources that were mentioned in the webinar. What we would like you guys to do for us would be to share your feedback on how the webinar went. We will share the link, feedback link in the chat as well. और हम आप लोगों को email भी कर देंगे. So just spend a couple of minutes and let us know what you liked about the webinar and what you didn't, so that we can constantly learn from you guys and give you guys more to look forward to. So Jazib, do you have any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts are, I am an AI optimist. Don't let people scare you about AI. The Terminator is not coming anytime soon. Well, hope so. But what I really would just really encourage you is to think about how this is not something intimidating. Think about कि वही मैंने आपको अपनी example दी ना कि I don't specifically have an academic background in AI, and I think a lot of people using AI around me don't really even have a specifically technical background, and they're able to benefit from it and become thought leaders in it. So the opportunity is there. I can't think of anything else that has happened during my, well, not very short, not very long life yet that has been so life-changing for everyone that it is the right time to just jump into it. And I don't know if we'll get that opportunity again in the next couple of years. So it's really something everyone should be learning about and talking about and sharing.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for joining in, everyone. We will have our next session in 2 weeks, in which we will talk about how we can learn with AI. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. And thank you so much. Thank you, Sir Jazib. Allah Hafiz. Have a nice day.
Take care, everyone. Good luck with AI.